We may not be able to get in on the hurling action like we're used to yet, but we can get in on some exclusive offers from Renault. To celebrate their third year as official car partner of the GAA, Renault is offering a range of special offers exclusive to all GAA club members. Check out renault.ie/GAA to find out more.
With Renault, official car partner of the GAA, taking the passion of a nation to a whole new gear.
A grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lad.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Come on, Mayo, you've got to get Anthony Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.
Morning, lads. How are you doing?
Good, Dalo.
Good, Dalo.
I think we're back to being the whipping boys of Munster again, are we?
You're the whipping boys of James Owens, according to Brian Lohan.
How are you all? You're welcome, folks. 5th of July. Not the first time on the 4th of July I had a bad day with Tip. I had a bad day in 1993 as well. No merciful baiting. But no, sure, look, loads talk about. Delighted that we can be joined this morning by O'Loughlin's Brian Hogan. Hoagie, how are you?
Good, Dalo. Better than yourself, I'd say.
I'm all right. I've been seeing enough of it now at this stage. Joanna asking me, was I going to get emotional and all yesterday? So I was more mad than sad. But no, sure, look at fantastic weekend of sport. I suppose there'd be disappointments either way. But Hoagie, your contract with Hawkeye is still going well for you.
God bless Hawkeye. Whoever was the lad in Crow Park who came up with that idea, I tell you one thing. As someone said, he must have been a Kilkenny man. I see Murph there tweeting there after the match saying, thank God for night. I had to chime in after it. Obviously, I benefited from it as well. But yeah, look, I mean, I suppose it's where technology is. It's proven its worth, you know, if you like, certainly from our perspective anyway. And we were glad of it.
And plus, like, the umpire had signal for a point as well, hadn't he? So I suppose, like, it was good refereeing from Fergal, really, just to go in, calm everyone down, so we go to Hawkeye here and make sure.
Yeah, look, I mean, you could see, you know, the plaudits that came out for Fergal after the match. You know, it was an epic encounter, and you know, everyone was singing these praises for various reasons. You know, I think there was a montage going around of about a 2-minute clip there where there was old style championship hurling. There was hits going in. There wasn't anyone looking for any favours. They were just getting on with it. It flowed. Wexford had possession, Kilkenny had possession. You know, and he let it go. And obviously in that instance where, you know, the match was in the melting pot, it was the last couple of seconds, a massive shot from Liam Ryan, and he had the composure and the calmness to kind of, you know, go in and, you know, consult with the umpire and, you know, and use the technology. And, you know, look, it obviously favoured us on this occasion, you know, and yeah, look, he had a huge game, you know, he was fantastic, you know, the spectacle that was on show. And the players take obviously huge credit for that as well, but, you know, Fergal Horgan, I think, allowed it to develop, and yeah, it was a perfect ending, I suppose, to a match full of drama, if you like, you know, the perfect end to full time at least anyway.
Some finished by Conor McDonald, like, not rewarded either, like, but
I know the skill to be able to double on it, you know, back into the net, and the awareness. Yeah, and the awareness, like most lads that switch off at that stage, you know, to expect it to come potentially back into play. You know, obviously Murph having done something similar a couple of times in the, you know, in prior to that. So yeah, you look, it had everything.
But it's technology, lads. That's the major thing, is that the right decision was got to, and whether it was the first minute or whether it was the 70th minute, the important thing is the right decision and the right outcome was achieved by the use of technology. And, you know, you're 100% right, Fergal Horgan contributed massively to the overall game, the spectacle that was there on Saturday. And he showed a composure a little bit different to what Alan Kelly, I suppose, a number of years ago with Limerick and Kilkenny in a similar situation later on, when the line ball hit the hurley and went out for a 65 that was never given. So, yeah, like, there was a lot of controversy that time, and it probably is the composure. Brian, you mentioned the composure of the referee to say, listen, technology is there. I know the game is nearly over. Don't panic now. And they'll go back to your time, Dalo, with Jimmy Cooney and stuff like that. If the technology was there, or somebody whispered in his ear, or his linesman came out, or umpires came out and said, "Look, Jimmy, you're 2 minutes short there. Just listen, you need to play another 2 or 3 minutes here."
Jeez, Landers, he's
Something
bad enough
obviously
this
is on.
morning. We will leave him alone. What's going digging up that stuff
Look,
for? It's a
to be
bad
fair,
day, like.
I just give him the out, like that if technology was around at that time in 1998, Dalo, you might have had the 3 all medals, like, you know.
There was technology. It's called a watch.
But it obviously ran out of battery. Must have been a Casio or something.
So, in fairness, I said it this morning. I think that was a genuine mistake. I think,
absolutely.
And the powers that be got Jimmy off the field as fast as lightning.
It's like
TJ, what you're taking the whole weekend, you're still sitting nice and cozy. The team that was supposed to come along and dethrone you are already out of the Leinster Championship, not out of the All-Ireland, mind you, but you didn't play well as the perception generally I'm hearing, and you still won by 7 points.
Well, first of all, Dalo, I'm going to go to the old saying of the GAA, nothing beats being there. I was there, and even though there was only 2,400 of us, there was a great atmosphere there. It definitely helped. It definitely helped all the games over the weekend. It makes a significant difference. And like, obviously, being there and being able to watch it tactically and what went on, and we heard Kieran Kingston afterwards saying that they put huge amount of work into it, and you could see that as the way they set up. It was intriguing, but it was brilliant. Like Nicky Quaid made a super save, which I thought was probably a significant turning point. I'm sure we'll come to the decision in a while in the game. I thought that if Cork got another goal there, they were just kind of getting a nice hold in the game. But we should be talking about probably a lot of good stuff. But unfortunately today, I know we're going to be dominated by in a while. But Nicky Quaid saved, the pace of Dara Fitzgibbon, the tackling of TJ Reid, just with some serious stuff. The intensity in the Wexford-Kilkenny game, you'd love to be part of it, love to be playing that. We should be talking about Dublin, like the goal they got. And I have to say, finish on maybe Ian Galvin's flick or Shamie Canalan's flick or Kelly's after right from the sideline. We had an awful lot of stuff there on the weekend, and in fairness, for 4 semi-finals, it might have been close to overdose material, but in fairness, in the main, it was very, very good stuff.
Was I was in trial and stuff, like, and I suppose to be dominated by the old decision in the clear tip one, and we won't maybe go overboard on that. We give our opinion on it and move on from it. I suppose it was one of those games that the rule has come in. I suppose Murph's one on Saturday is a clear cut. Why we need it. Murph knew what he was doing. Yeah. He took the chance on young Brennan going in and saving the penalty and his own time in the bin. The other ones have been, the Shane Fives one, the Peter Casey one. I think this latter one on Aidan McCarthy have been controversial. I suppose what I would say is maybe Shanahan and Conor Cahalane looked like they might be getting off shots that would be goals. There was a chance. For me, how Jake Morris could be perceived as if he was a goal threat from there, or there was a chance of a goal. That's why I found it difficult to accept. Now, we'd Fergal on this show with us, and he gave us the line that it was up to the ref. The rule was there that great players can cause goals to come out of any angle. But I think if it was a thing that Jake Morris had sidestepped Aidan McCarthy and was gone inside him, and we know he's incredible pace now, so is Aidan McCarthy for that matter. But it was the type of free it was. Aidan McCarthy had got back and made a brilliant hook. Then Paul Flanagan got blocked down. And he mistimed, or it was a poor challenge. I would say fair enough. There's a definite yellow. Might have even been a hint of a red off it. But he definitely wasn't thinking, I'm going to take you down from getting a goal here. That's my take on it. And that's why I'm disappointed that James decided, well, the rule is there. I'm going to just enforce it because it's in the law. And that's why I was very disappointed about it. Your takes.
Me, Dalo, I'll go first. Two things I'm going to say is I told she, and I know that that's an easy statement to make, that this potentially could happen. Even live at the match for me, and I was in a perfect position for the Peter Casey one, right? Live, right? After he was fouled, it was extremely difficult live to say that there was a goal on, right? Now, afterwards, with the kind of advantage of television, you're saying, yes, Conor Callahan would have got the shot off. But live, so for me, a referee in situations like that, he's not going to be, it's a rule that I thought at the time was going to cause plenty hassle, and it has the potential to cause more hassle. The other side of it is the penalty is too harsh. A penalty and a sin bin is too harsh. It's like a double penalty. And the last thing is, I think a little bit like maybe other sports like soccer or rugby, that in order to give a red card or give these decisions going forward, I think you need to be absolutely stonewall sure, like the Owen Murphy situation. I think it'd be better to err the other way. If we were here today arguing that he should have given a sin bin or he should have given a penalty for some decision, I think it would be a better argument from the GAA's point of view. But I think the decision was wrong. And I'm hoping that the governing body of referees, whoever they are going to stand up and be counted. I don't think James should be taking the full brunt of it. He's trying to enforce a rule that, I don't know, like it started this league, Dalo, we were giving out about the advantage rules. Somebody tinkered with that. They listened and they changed. In fairness, I think we should take a lot of credit for Fergal Horgan. I think we moulded him on this show. I think we've made him a better referee. I definitely think that. And I think that maybe if James wants to come and talk to us, I think it'll be a big advantage for him, right? And I think that if we were sitting on the referees committee for making rule changes and looking at game going forward, I think the game will be in a far better place, Dalo.
Well, there's your answer now, Donald Smith and all those lads. And Croker, just get the 4 of us on up there. We'd sort of be. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I'm conscious. We're in a similar, well, not a similar situation, different instance, obviously, but with Fergal and with the same opposition, if you like, Tipperary a couple of years ago to Richie Hogan, and that was far more open to debate. This one was clear cut, and it's not that it's Tipperary and anything like, which I've seen on social media, a bit of that kind of narrative around Kenny Tip. It's not anything to do with that. It's literally a case of it wasn't a goal scoring chance. As a defender, I do not understand how it can be interpreted that a forward picks up a ball, someone say closer to the Ennis Road than to the goal line, and it's a goal scoring chance.
Up there in the corner, look, Dalo. See the corner to get it going there. Look, you can see the Ennis Road. Look right there.
Yeah, it was a bad tackle, you're right, Dalo. But I mean, like, as a defender, that's exactly where you want to defend a forward, out there on the sideline in the corner. You could argue he should have just cut the angle off and kind of trying to keep him out there. But it was a bad challenge. But no way was it. Look, there were so many variables still at play for that to come off as a goal. In terms of him beating the other defenders coming back, getting a shot off, beating the keeper, all that kind of thing. So no, it wasn't. It wasn't. I think everyone's in agreement on that, and it's just a poor decision, unfortunately, that did ultimately have a huge impact on the game.
And Mark, you'd have to give credit to Tip, a bit like in the All-Ireland final of 2 years ago. They really did capitalise on the extra man, like 2-4 to 2 points in that 10 minutes alone, probably sealed the game.
We did mention this in the pad before, that if a team went down to 14 players against Tipperary, the one crowd that used the ball fierce well are the Tipperary team, and they proved that again over the weekend. And I mean, they scored 2-4 versus 2 points in that period of time. And I was thinking about the rugby analogy in some respects, Dalo. When a team goes down to 14, they normally say it's about an 8-point swing, or maybe one try-scoring opportunity. And it's a bit like the Cork and Limerick game the other night, when Cork went down or had the extra man and Limerick went down to 14. It was actually Limerick that took on the mental at that stage, and they outscored Cork in that period of time. So that's something we say from a Cork perspective, which was disappointing. But going back to it, we did mention when Fergal was on the programme, remember I said to you that I thought there should be an extra line introduced halfway between the sideline and the goalpost. Like the soccer in England, okay, that the penalty area, that there's an area out there called dead man's land or no man's land, we'd say, and that's where that foul was committed. And we all felt that a foul out by the sideline was not going to be a goal scoring opportunity, and I felt that there should be an extra line introduced halfway between the sideline and the goals, So, and that would actually help the referees, I suppose, in some respects. Now, the other side of this is that Shamie Canlan picked up a ball, lads, out the other sideline and turned his man, and he got a goal out of it. I noticed a mistake by the keeper, so he did engineer a goal scoring opportunity, which did come off. I feel sorry for James Owens, and I thought it got very personal over the weekend on the interview with Brian Lohan, and I don't blame Brian. I'm just saying it got very personal for an amateur referee to be pinpointed for him carrying out the rules of the association. And I think if he didn't if he didn't give the penalty, let's just turn it around a little bit. If he didn't give the penalty and Tipper beaten by 2 points, the first person that would come out after the game is Liam Sheedy, and he would say, we had a player that was tripped inside the 21-yard line with a goal scoring opportunity, and we weren't awarded a penalty. And that's what you'd be listening to, is you'd have that negativity, and he'd be saying, the rules of the association are there, and we have a referee that didn't abide by the rules.
I don't think he would, Mark. I don't think Liam would have come back to that situation. I think a yellow card and a free in for Jason Ford and a point. Let's just see. We obviously explained it badly the first morning we tackled it, and Johnny Ryan got onto us, so we got Fergal on the show. Let's just hear what Fergal had to say. Probably backs up your point, Mark, to a fair extent.
Obviously, last year there was a bit of cynical fouls. There was probably more so than other years. But was that because of the time of the year we played in as well? You know what I mean? It brings around different winter hurling. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it did, maybe it doesn't. To answer your question, if a corner forward gets the ball on the sideline inside the 20-metre line, and he rounds the player, right? Why will the player pull him down if he doesn't feel it's a goal scoring opportunity? So, in my opinion, that if the corner forward is capable of rounding his man at any stage inside the 20-metre line, and he can lose his marker, at the level we're operating at, any corner forward, and Anthony has played centre back, wing back, and TG played at both ends of the field, Mark, and you played wing back, midfield. You know yourself the calibre of player you're dealing with nowadays. The TG Rees, the Joe Cannings, the Aaron Gillans, all these men are capable of scoring. If they can swing the hurley anywhere inside the 20-metre line, these boys are capable of putting the ball in the back of the net. So the question I'd ask is, if the defender doesn't feel he's under pressure, why will he pull him down inside the 20-metre line? And in my opinion, if the player is going inside the man and he's pulled down inside that 20-metre line deliberately, in my opinion, it's a penalty and a sin bin. And that's clear cut.
Yeah, it's fairly clear cut on what he says there. But I just think we might look at Brian Lohan's reaction as well, Mark, who brought the 2 points up there. So it might be a good time to just listen to what
the biggest thing is disappointment to lose the game, particularly when it was real competitive and we were in good shape. And do I need to mention what everyone is talking about, I presume?
I suppose the penalty did change the game, Brian. The interpretation we were given was it was up to the referee deemed it a goal scoring opportunity within the 21. It looked to have confused a lot of people. What was the information you got, Brian, to explain that decision? I
didn't get any information to explain the decision. I could just see what happened with my own eyes. And I think the boos at the end of the game from the crowd is a reflection of what did happen. So I don't know, we're just stunned with it. Did you have reservations about the rule in general, Brian? Because I suppose it's up to the referee on the day, then the individual has to carry out that decision. But the rule is there in black and white. Did you have any reservations before the championship started with this? Well, sure, the rule is okay. It's the interpretation is the issue. Like, the rule is there for both teams. So I have no problem with the rule, but it's the interpretation of it. I suppose you'd argue that you had defenders back. Well, I had a quick look at it on video there, and it looked like we'd more than one defender back. I don't know how he figured that it was. I'd say he's probably the only person in the ground that thought it was a goal-scoring opportunity. Would you have sympathy for the referee in question with the task of having to interpret that rule on any given day in that championship heat? I wouldn't, no. The sin bin changed the momentum of that game as well, Brian. Tipperary got a few scores after that. Just how damaging was it to the morale of the team and the shape of the team? I suppose, look, 2-4 to 2 points, I think, was the score during that 10 minutes against any opposition, but particularly a forward line like Tipperary. If you go down to 14 men, they'll hurt you, they'll do damage, and that's exactly what they did. Yeah, so credit to RT there for giving us the interview. He clearly upset. I'm not so sure he was overly personal, Mark. Do you know, he said he wouldn't have sympathy for the ref. I didn't think he was overly personal. But he also said straight afterwards that James Owens red carded David McInerney last year, and he was the only player to be red carded. Now, I think he's inferring there slightly that James Owens might be hard on Clare Anthony. I actually don't know the incident that David McInerney was sent off for last year. I don't know whether any of you know it, but I think James Owens is an amateur person going around every day of the week, and I think openly criticising a fella for carrying out the rules of the association, I think are pretty harsh on him, you know. Yeah. So what's your take, TJ, on Fergal's interview with us there a good few weeks ago now?
The rule is open, just as Fergal said there, right? Because, look, I think if we were in a court of law, right, I don't think anybody can definitely argue there wasn't a goal on, right? Like, James could say maybe there was a player inside, he had to look up, that Jake Morris would have skipped 3 or 4 strides. Like, if we take the next goal after that, and if Shamie Callan had been fouled over the corner flag, right, we would all have argued, no way in the world was there a goal on. But Shamie Callan did, for whatever reason. No, it was a mistake by the keeper. He scored a goal, right? So James Owens could point to that. Like, the rule was brought in, Dalo, for the 2 or 3 incidents last year that were absolutely brutally cynical. Exactly, player knew exactly what he was doing, right? The problem when you go into rule of law, right, in any association or any organization, here at work even, right, you're always slow to bring in a rule because the very minute then someone kind of steps inside of what are you going to do, right? So that's posing the challenge for the referee. So the problem is with the rule. Should it be there for cynical play? Yes, but then you're into a minefield of what happened over the weekend. I think we need clarification that what James Owens did was a mistake, and if we get that, I think we have a way forward.
I suppose, like, on that one, TJ, like, I mean, if you look at the Owen Murphy incident with Conal, I mean, with Conal Flood, like, it was a 1-on-1. The expectation would be that Conal would score. Is a 1-on-1 with the keeper. The expectation in the Clare Tipperary situation certainly wasn't that he was going to score a goal. You're right. Who's to say he may have, skipped past, 3 or 4 steps and hung a ball in the far corner and we'd be talking about. But certainly the law of averages, the expectation was there's no way he should score a goal from out there. Whereas the rule was brought in for, as you say, the cynical play that Murph did, the day before, where he knew what he was doing and he had to, in fairness, that was the rule it was brought in for, and he had to go on because it was a clear. So there's the interpretation of it, and I think all of us agree that the expectation was there wasn't going to be a goal to come off it. Same way with Shamie Callan, we wouldn't have expected him to score that goal, but again he slipped and Quilligan slipped in the goal as well, and it was a poor mistake, so. It wasn't. You wouldn't have said either situations were a clear goal scoring opportunity.
Yeah, but I suppose Fergal Hogan did make the point that the quality of player that we have in the country at the moment are capable of scoring goals from anywhere, and that's a valid point. And like, the byproduct of the rule that has come in has actually stopped cynical play so far in the championship out the field as well, guys. So it's not just for the goal scoring opportunity, it's actually for some of the Denny Sutcliffe tackle last year was the first time I saw a fella hitting a fella with a hurley on the run 50 yards out and bringing him down, and we saw other incidents afterwards. We haven't seen any major cynical play this year, and so like there is a byproduct to what is happening. I think okay, the controversy about it, and we got to take out, where we're from and the reasons and how disappointed we are, and point you to a defeat or not defeat. Like, late in the game, I'd be a bit more critical of the penalty that wasn't awarded late in the game, where there was a definite pull down. So, like, I think it'll benefit our game longer term, and I also think it'll benefit forwards, because I genuinely feel that forwards for the last number of years have been pulled and dragged and hauled. Their skill level is being tested more than it ever was. That's fair enough. But I think some of the hauling and the mauling that forwards are taking, whatever county they're in, right, is way over the top at the moment.
I disagree, Mark. Totally. I think the incident between Shanahan and Barry Heffernan inside was coming together. It was 50-50. We've seen loads of them. It could have been a penalty. Like, I think Shanahan might have pulled him in first, then Barry Heffernan gets involved. I actually think the one piece of real cynical play in the game, right, was late in the game, right, when there was a ball poked down the middle. Shanahan caught it just outside the 21-yard line. 2 tip backs came and held him up. They knew exactly what they were doing. That was definitely cynical. So the rule isn't going to fix that. And we spoke about that before, I think, where Jackie Turrell said that if you hold a player up and stand him up, they definitely knew they were fouling him there, Dalo. So I think it's a minefield. It's a tricky one. And as I said to you, I think the answer to our problems is, rather than beating the shit out of this, is that the four of us go to Croke Park, we have a chat with the lads, we trash it out, small few expenses, and I think the game would be in a better place.
and a couple of tickets for the Munster Leinster final, TJ.
I've been inclined to agree with you nearly, TJ, about the last one. And Jackie was adamant on the show there yesterday that there should have been a penalty for Anjana. I thought they were both kind of at it as the ball was dropping. But I just still can't get my head around where the type of tackle that Aidan McCarthy put in on Jake Morris and to bring the ball in and give a penalty and send the guy off for 10 minutes. I can't understand how the ref decided, now is the time to apply this rule because it's in the rules. Technically, I'm in the right by doing this, but my gut feeling is telling me here, this is all wrong. There's no way this is a goal scoring chance. I'm going to be straight up and say that I can't figure out how his mind went to send in penalty.
Is it coming back to the way they were assessed, Dalo? He knows, as you said, that technically within the rule, it is a free, but in the I suppose spirit of the game, it was a really goal scoring opportunity. And just to follow up on Mark's point, I mean, I've no kind of connection to either side. I'd absolutely say that the Murphy incident on Conan Flood was a sin bin and a penalty, absolutely. In the Tip Clare match, as an impartial onlooker, I would agree with you, Dalo, that I do feel they were hard done by, and it was, for me, looking on as a kind of impartial spectator, it had a massive influence on, because I thought Clare were really hurling well, and as Brian Lohan mentioned, that 2-4 in that period, it obviously conceding that, I think Clare were shell-shocked, the penalty, Tip converted it, and then Callan with the fortuitous goal then shortly after that. It was a massive turning point in the game, if you like, a period of a couple of minutes. And I think for Clare, in terms of their development, it was a huge kind of psychological knockback, against the old enemy, if you like, to try and expect them to bounce back from that kind of 6-7 point swing.
Yeah, I suppose at the end of the day, though, they have to now, Huggy, and they have to try and pick up the pieces. I suppose hopefully maybe get a break in the draw, maybe avoid the first match. For Tip, Mark, they hurled well in patches. I felt, they opened up Clare a nice few times, and Eibhear Quilligan, although he did get caught for a soft goal, he made 3 great saves as well. So they showed flashes of what they're capable of, but I wouldn't have thought on that performance they would beat Limerick, but every game is different, obviously. Yeah,
first day out, Anthony blown away the cobwebs and stuff like that. I suppose a lot of managers and teams are a bit apprehensive because the league has probably been shown to be a phony league really now at the moment, when you see what Wexford and Kilkenny served up in the league, and then what they served up a short couple of weeks later in the championship was just chalk and cheese. So I think Tip, like Limerick, there's a good bit of improvement in them. I'd say they both would be delighted to get over the line in the main, injury-free, have a 2-week run now into the Munster final. I think Tip, they created the chances, Anthony, that will trouble any team. And they're fantastic hurlers. I thought Paddy Maher was slightly uncomfortable early in the game, and he grew more into the game. I thought Tip got a massive amount out of Michael Breen and Dan McCormack, which are a huge help to their forwards as well. They bring a massive physicality to it. I thought Bubbles looked extremely fit and lean, and I think he'll improve a good bit for the game as well. So I thought Tip hurled well, Anthony, and I thought Clare got the start that they wanted. They got to the front, they got their tails up, they got a goal before half-time, from their talisman, Tony Kelly, which is fantastic as well, and it gave them a real shot in the arm going in at half-time. Definitely the penalty had a bit to do with the result. There's no point in saying otherwise, particularly when it came down to 4 points at the end. Now, Tip were comfortable, I thought, at 8 points, Anthony. I thought they should have went on, but when you're coming and you've 8 points up and you look like you're in cruise control and there's a couple of scores coming against the run of play. But I thought in general, I think Tip will be very happy. I also think that Clare will be very happy coming, Anthony, out of that game. They had a very good win against Waterford. They'll point to the controversies, maybe one of the reasons why they got beaten. But they'll be, like everybody in the back door now, all, particularly the Munster teams, I suppose, they're all eyeing up maybe the winners of Antrim and Laois, I suppose, if they go into round 1. And as you said there, would you prefer a round 2 game and not have to go to the well for another game? There are the things that are going to be trashed out, I suppose, in people's heads. But I think the morale of the team is the most important thing now. And say, look, lads, all is not lost. You know, the Munster and Leinster winners at the end of the day, they will get some silverware. But the main prize at the end of the day is the Liam McCarthy at the end of the year. We are still there. We have that opportunity. And it's about getting the head down for the next couple of weeks and crossing the fingers that the draw works out. And that everybody now, doesn't it add to the whole season now from a hurling point of view that the back door is nearly as attractive as the front door right now?
Yeah, I think you'd be looking across at the football brigade and you're saying, if you had a day like that yesterday, you'd know back door, then you'd tend to be cutting you a good bit more. So there is that chance. Yeah. And, you know, for the likes of Clare, David McInerney got a good bit of hurling into him. Shane O'Donnell will be back in the equation. And I like that, Mark. I was very encouraged at the way they stayed at it and might have got a goal near the end and could have really brought it down to the wire. So I think there's a lot for Lohan to build on. He's had to trying to take their minds away from controversy all year. So he's just got to do it again now and get them back on track straight away. And I'd also like to say, Anthony, that we all played against Brian Lohan, and he was ferocious as a fullback and as a player, as a Clare player, right? And I thought his interview after the game was so honest. It just epitomised him as an individual. And I was really proud to be a GA person yesterday in the way he conducted himself. And he was breathing fire because you could hear it through the microphone. But I thought it was a box office interview straight after being beaten in the championship. And I thought Damien Lawler handled the questions for us well as well, because he asked them a couple of difficult questions and there was difficult answers came out of it as well. And it was great viewing for, I don't know how many people watched the match yesterday, but, you know, for a small amount of people that were allowed. And also to mention that the GA, that we got an increase from 300 or 400 people on the Saturday up to 4,000 people or whatever the number was. And it did add to the atmosphere of it. And I, like TJ, I was at the Limerick Cork game live, and there was only 2,500 people. By God, everybody knew what county they were from, and they were showing their colours because both sets of supporters were getting behind their team on Saturday night. But I just thought that Lohan's interview was box office. It was, and you're right, Damien. Damien was superb as well, and kept the foot down as well and wasn't afraid. It reminded me a bit of being in team meetings about 25 years ago with Brian Lohan. He'd be like that in the team meeting as well. He'd be nothing spared. Like if he's something to say, he'd say it. You know, and if he'd nothing to say as well, he'd say no, nothing to say, nothing to add. So it was interesting.
Yeah, the boys said there is a nice forward line developing there. Like Ian Galvin has made a big difference. Like obviously you said, Colin Galvin already coming back in. Like they're definitely building a nice team, and like you'd say that they're heading in the right direction for sure. In fairness to all, Oak said last night, you'd hope it wouldn't define their season what happened. Like so, you know, if they can maybe kind of, and I'm sure Lohan will kind of galvanise them in a way, like they'll be a threat. They're definitely like. I didn't tip them to beat Waterford the first day out. Like they definitely have improved a good bit. The forwards are definitely moving in the right direction. I said that they were kind of really relying on Tony Kelly. Tony wasn't at his best in the first half yesterday, and they still hurled up a storm. Like it was a good, really good 35 minutes of hurling in the first half.
Yeah, just like Ryan Taylor stepped up as well. Sorry, Hogan.
Yeah, and I suppose coming from defensive side, you know, and I think you referenced it in the last podcast. You can really see the stamp below and Tracy on that Clare side in terms of defensively. You know, I would have. Probably rightly or wrongly, I don't know, the perception with Clare, you know, the last couple of years was if they were going to win a match, it had to be an epic shootout. You know, that sometimes defensively they were kind of more interested in attacking than doing the kind of the nuts and bolts, you know, the work that kind of almost goes unseen. Whereas there's a bit of steel, you know, like they obviously have Hayes. Flanagan is back, you know, I mean, you know, he was there a number of years ago and kind of went off the scene, and now he's hurling away with Ballyale. A great defender, had a great game. You know, I think there's a bones, you know, a really good half back line there. There was questions over Conlon going back centre back, but you know, I thought he's, you know, really done a great job from a centre back. And I just felt the six backs, they almost enjoy defending first and foremost before kind of, you know, then going up the field and throwing balls over the bar or whatever else, which is, you know, I'd imagine something alone would have targeted and really wanted to put his stamp on. So you can, to the boys' point, you can kind of see a lot of positives around the Clare setup and the Clare team that they can certainly build on, hopefully through the qualifiers,
Yeah, so much to look forward to, and I think a fantastic Munster final as well to look forward to. The whole perception out there that Limerick have it over Tip, and I think, from a Tip point of view, you can imagine the 2 weeks of building up to that. Now they'll quickly put behind them any feeling that they got a leg up from a refereeing decision. They'll be just focused on a big performance. We had a massive day's hurling Saturday, lads, all on Sky, I suppose, which disappointed some people that maybe wouldn't have access to it. But look, them's the times we live in, I guess. We'll just stay with Munster for the time being. There's no doubt the game of the weekend was Kilkenny and Wexford, but funny match, Tip and Cork, I thought. Weird one. I thought Cork were doing really well. The 2 goals were complete sucker punches. I felt very sorry for Sean O'Donoghue, I have to say, because I thought he played, hurled really well defensively, and just to put up his hurley to block that shot instinctively, and probably Patrick Collins would have saved it, the type of shot it was, and in the blink of an eye, then Kyle has made a run up from wing back and sticks to, and then you were saying Limerick going to be hard to peg back, and they were, even though I thought when it was 4 points in it there for a good while, the second half, I said if Cork could kick on and get 2 quick points here now, we could see an upset, but they did enough, and they played out to the line, as John Kiley said. They always play out to the line and win by 7. But a funny game, I thought. It never really flowed, yet Limerick could be quite happy with it.
Yeah, I thought tactically, Dalo, it was interesting. Obviously, Cork set up very much man-marking Morrissey, Gillan, Cian Lynch and Hego. Like the way they set up, right, which is kind of hard to see sometimes on television, is Tim O'Mahony just went everywhere where he followed Hego, right? And he was up for the battle because he pulled up 1 or 2 aerial balls, marked the early doors, and he let Hego know, hey, I'm around for the day here, which was probably good from a Cork point of view, right? Damien Callahan picked up Shane Flanagan, Donoghue picked up Gillan, Cadigan picked up Morrissey, and then the forwards, the Cork 6 forwards, right? Like for a lot of the game, they tried to position themselves inside their own 45, right? So they pushed right up and brought the 6 Limerick backs in with them, and they tried to create the gap between the half-forward line and the 2 midfielders in pulled into the half-back line. So it was strange at times, like you wouldn't normally see that the gap was between their half-forward line and their midfield. They tried to hit space with the puck out. And for me, in that first half, they did an awful lot right. Jack O'Connor got a couple of nice scores. He got a great score off Sean Finn there in front of us. Kingston got a good goal, and like at times Cork, I thought Mark moved the ball through the line with pace. Like Darren Fitzgibbon, we know is a Ferrari, right? He could just get going and get scores. So I thought from Cork's point of view, there was a lot to like about it. You'd have to say from Limerick's point of view that they'd be happy. It wasn't their best performance. With a couple of forwards taken off, but you're still winning cozy in the end, Dalo, as you said. Like they said, I didn't. Even though on the 55th minute, Hoggy had a free in front of Kingston, they went wide, did another free. I think Cadigan had a wide there. You're asking yourself if they scored in. But at the end of the day, I think Limerick had 20 wides and Cork at 16. I just felt that in the second half, I didn't feel at any stage sitting in the stands that we were going to lose the game.
You could say that. But Mark, we're probably talking. We're going to finish. We're set up about Clare and Tip now in the incident, but you got one maybe that wasn't quite clear cut either, but then not to score it in, and then you conceded more with the guy. That was the killer period for Cork, really.
Yeah, so Cork started fierce well, and it was epitomised by the manager on the sideline. I was actually at a great view of Cian Kingston. He was up for the battle as well, and I think there was definitely something from a tactics point of view that he wanted to rule the sideline as well, because he was very animated on a good number of occasions. Both with the referees and the linesmen and stuff like that. And as you mentioned, TJ early doors, Tim O'Mahony and Garrod Hegarty had a fair coming together, and Cian Kingston jumped out in his back. And I've never seen that, I suppose, animation out of Cian before. So certainly Cork were definitely up for the battle, a real battle now. They were going to go physical and toe-to-toe with Limerick. But I think, Dalo, you've mentioned about turning points and the Conor Cahalan situation. On the night, I didn't think it was a penalty. And when I look back on it on the television, I definitely didn't think it was a penalty, because there was no cynicism whatsoever with Peter Casey's tackle. Conor Callahan had cut the ball twice already. He was actually running out of runway as far as I was concerned. He was going to be hitting a shot off of his Hurley possibly. And I don't think it was a goal scoring opportunity at that stage. Then to get the penalty and Hoggy to hit it to the goalkeeper's Hurley side, I was shocked, I'd have to say. It was a reasonably well struck ball, I would say, but I was surprised that he didn't take the advantage and go to the other side of the keeper, where the keeper would have to cross his Hurley over to save it. So we were 2 points up at the time. We were a man up at the time, and it would have put us 5 points up and definitely in the driving seat. We then conceded 2 goals in quick succession. I think Robbie Flynn, even though I tried hard, will have nightmares about when he looks at his individual game himself, because the first goal came when he fumbled the ball 2 or 3 times in the 21-yard line. He probably should have just made sure. And like that maybe is a forward back in the back line, whereas as backs, you have to get on that ball and secure it, whatever happens. Stage 2 is when you get the ball in your hand, okay, where am I going to go with it? But stage 1 is get the ball. Robbie tried to flick it and kick it and all that kind of stuff. Lost possession, ball ends up in the net. But the second one was just a disaster, like. And, lads, when you're talking about goal-scoring opportunities, I watched it back in the video again this morning. When Kyle Hayes picked up the ball, there was 3 defenders between him and the goalkeeper. So when we're discussing penalties and sin bins and stuff like that, and just because there's defenders between the man with the ball and the goalkeeper doesn't mean that the ball is going to be saved. And in this incident, I thought Owen Canagan, even though he had a fine game, he backed off of Kyle Hayes, right? He should have come out to Kyle Hayes and put him under pressure and make him strike the ball at him or through him. But I thought he opened the opportunity by backing back. And I thought overall it was poor defending, both from Robbie that he didn't track him, but there was 3 defenders there, and it was a real kick in the pants right before half time. And it was huge for Limerick. And then that gap was probably there. And I'd have to agree with TJ. I think at no stage did we look like dragging him in, but we held Limerick scoreless for 13 minutes in the second half, and we shot 6 wides. And if half of them went over, we'd have been very close. And I do believe that the free to Patrick Hogan out in the 65 near the sideline, he normally would score them, and that was a big blow to Cork. The other thing I would say is that I thought Cork's restarts from dead balls were poor, both puck outs. Their free taking overall was poor. They had a lot of wides and sidelines in particulars. They got nothing from sidelines, and in actual fact, Dalo Fitzgibbon hit one straight across the field to a Limerick player to Dalo Donovan was cleared. So I thought there was definitely a bit of work that needs to be done. And I couldn't understand. Tim O'Mahony took one in the first half from the half-back line, a score, but what if Mark Coleman wasn't the player that was actually brought up to take it because of the angle. Mark hits the ball from right to left. It was a right to left shot. So there was a couple of things, Anthony, I thought that Cork got wrong. And the other thing I suppose that really annoyed me, the real thing that annoyed me now, and from a school teacher point of view, right? We've all failed an exam, but this was an NG now, right? No grade. Alan Connolly was brought on with a minute to go in the match, right? He's now been ruled out of the under-20 championship for 2021, okay? Now, the way the matches are falling, we've an All-Ireland under-20 final next weekend, which is the 10th of July. We've the first round of the under-20 championship for this year on the 20th of July. And if Cork got a bye to the second round, that match is on the 24th of July. But Connolly, because he was brought on with a minute to go, has been ruled out of that championship match. And that they're playing Tip in the first round, and he'd probably be their best forward. I thought it was very, very naive of the Cork management to bring on Connolly so late in the game. And, it was quite obvious with the previous subs that had been brought on, when Hannity was taken off, the physicality had been taken out of the game. And I'm just wondering, where's Dickie Dalton gone in the overall equation here? Because to me, it was obvious in the last 15 minutes, the balls that were going into the square were coming straight out, that there was no physicality there. And Declan Dalton would have filled that gap. But it's more that Connolly was brought on with time nearly up. It didn't serve any purpose whatsoever, particularly if Cork get a bye to the next round of the championship. That doesn't serve the best purposes of Cork hurling, that Connolly was brought on that late in the game, in my opinion.
Marco, just two small things there for me is I thought the puck-out strategy was way better than we'd seen in the league. I thought they mixed the long and the short well. I thought Collins got 2 or 3 lovely ones away to Harnedy and them. So I was impressed with that. I thought it was an awful lot of work done there. I thought it was good. And the thing about Connolly, fair enough, right? I have a bigger problem with the rule now than what happened. I think it's a daft.
I agree. And TJ, the first time I saw this was 3 or 4 years ago when Kerry were denied David Clifford and Shawnee O'Shea in an All-Ireland under-21 football final. Yeah. I thought it was a disgrace that those lads have played all the ways up along the line with the development squads and the minors, and to deny their team the 2 best players. And like, as we all know, if you're a good under-20 player, you're going to be training with the senior team and you just go back and you play the championship matches, or maybe the week of championship, you'll have your 2 training sessions with the under-20 team. So it's not like there's going to be a massive overload. And that was the reason why it was brought in, is to not overload these lads who could be in college as well, if Fitzgibbon or Sigerson. But to deny a team their 2 best players or 1 best player, like Shane Barrett also fell into this category, Anthony, that he also qualifies for under-20 this year with Cork. Now, he was brought on with 15 or 20 minutes ago and had a fine game when he came on. I had no issue with that, and he's the way forward. But Connolly with a minute ago, I have a big issue with that.
Yeah, and I suppose we flagged it here before, and I heard a good few lads in Clare complaining last week when Clare were probably 6 points up that Mark Rogers was brought on. I can only think back again to the 90s when Ger Lucan decided to bring 4 of the under-21 team up to Croke Park for a training session when they were playing the Munster final against Tip at the same night. Where I was thinking that was a horror show, but I suppose justified by winning the Senior All-Ireland for the first time in Donkey's year. So I don't know. Yeah, it's an awful rule. It's an awful rule that lads don't have to play. They were a bit harsh on Cork. Decky thought Hoggy just didn't have a go on day with the freeze, I think, and the penalty you'd have to include on that, Brian. You know, he normally... Yeah. We expect him to click into gear with 1 long range free and then everything will go over. So taking him off freeze would be a nuclear enough option, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I mean, he's arguably the best free taker in the country, or has been over the last number of years. But I suppose when you're coming up against the All-Ireland champions, you need to minimise the mistakes and you need to capitalise on all the opportunities. Like, Limerick can afford to drive 20 wides, and you know the belief in that team. They know exactly what their role is. You know, to John Kiley, you know, after the match he was interviewed and he said, bottom line was it was just getting through. You know, the performances and all that are grand later on in the year, but for him, it was beating Cork and getting ready for a Munster final, you know, and going the direct route. For Cork, it was a different situation. You know, they were coming up against the All-Ireland champions, the season's team. You know, they needed to take every opportunity. They needed Corrigan to hang that penalty, you know, and keep the pressure on Limerick and not drive 16 wides. And you know, as Mark has mentioned, they needed the likes of Robbie Flynn to be switched on. You know, he was marking Kyle Hayes. We all know Kyle Hayes, a bit like Kyle Lyons for Waterford, rampaging up the wing. You know, he's there, you know, for a reason. It's his physicality. He's rampaging, you know, runs up, getting scores. He just switched off for that split second, and you know, the damage is done. You know, you're playing against a quality team like Limerick. So yeah, look, I mean, I like the way the Cork lined up. I really like the look of their backs, their 6 backs, which has been a problem area for them. Tim O'Mahony, I think, has really started to kind of bring more of that kind of physical side of his game. He had a couple of wild pulls there in the league in 1 or 2 matches, but again, he was kind of setting down a marker, if you like, you know, and maybe you got a couple of the other players around him, the ball players, if you like, looking at him and going, right, well, you know, I need to follow suit. And obviously we know Cadigan on the other side, he loves he revels in that kind of physical side of it, and clearly they targeted Hegarty and Morrissey, and you know, you'd have to say it worked in a lot of respects. The 2 lads were taken off, so Cork had a lot right. But you know, again, it comes back to if you're going to stop the All-Ireland champions, you have to get it. You nearly have to get everything right, and you can't be leaving scores behind you. You know, when you get a dead ball in front of the goal, Christ, who do you want taking it? You know, you want TJ, you want Horgan, you know, you want Canning. And unfortunately for Cork, it's those kind of small situations. And I was actually going to ask, because I was curious, you know, to get Mark's view on where was Connolly and Dalton, because particularly Connolly, you know, we've discussed it in the club when we're reviewing it, you know, Blackrock, and we, you know, in the latter ends of the league, I think against Tip, he came on and he made a huge impact. I couldn't understand why he only came on. So I don't think I need to ask that question now. I think you've made your views really clear on it. So we'll move on.
But on that, Mark, I was saying like that, like, why isn't he coming on sooner now? I wasn't thinking of the 20s because I was just thinking Cork win the game, and I thought he came on and made an impact in nearly all the league games. And the next thing I see him appear, and I said, what's the point of bringing him on now? Like, what can he do at this stage? You know, that was my bit on it.
Yeah, and the way the league panned out, that is exactly what they did yesterday as well. They just gave him a cameo at the end. And like, if they were really serious about playing him yesterday against Limerick, I think he should have started against Galway, in my opinion, and give him a real test. There has been he didn't get any real test in the league, and he showed fantastic ability during the league, because he only got about, I'd say, 20-25 minutes in total across the whole league, and he got 4 goals in that period of time. But it didn't serve the purpose, or any purpose, I thought, bringing him on that late in the game. No, there might be something that we're not aware of and stuff like that. So I don't want to be too harsh on him, but like, I really don't see there being any point in bringing him on at that stage of the game.
The other piece, well, Mark, I suppose, is you mentioned Harnedy coming off, and he's been consistently for years the big ball winner for Cork, and the physical kind of battering ram, if you like, up front. Now, plenty of hurling as well. I don't mean to disparage in that respect. But when you're playing the side the likes of Limerick, the physicality that they bring, you could see Cork visibly tiring. Now, whether that was the case that the game was starting to run away from them, and Limerick knew they were out the gate almost, but they were tiring. And at that stage, you need 1 or 2 guys, the likes of a Jackie Dalton or a Connolly, who naturally, it's their natural game to go and win primary possession, take a guy on, just to keep the Limerick lads honest, if you like. And they didn't have that, and it's, I just thought Cork missed out a bit.
And there was no, you're right, and there was a couple of incidents late in the game. I suppose Patrick's free would have been one. That would be an energy sapper. Owen Cadigan's point opportunity, 65 yards out on his own, an energy sapper. Like, everybody feels that. The players, the management, the spectators, and obviously the opposition are breathing a sigh of relief that those clear-cut opportunities don't go off. So, look, there probably is, there's more in us. Like, I suppose if you wanted to be really critical, Conor Cahalane, in my opinion, should have started on Kyle Hayes. He would do that job that you're looking for, that he would track him everywhere. And that did happen in the second half, but it didn't happen in the first half. I was a bit... And Robbie Flynn, if I matched up the 2 wing forwards, Robbie would be more of a scorer rather than somebody that would be doing tracking and doing all that kind of running. And Conor would have been seen the other way around. So I thought those 2 half forwards should have been on the opposite sides from the get-go.
Fine lines, though, Mark. Fine lines. Like that goal,
TJ,
the goal that Kyle Hayes got, right? If you watch it on the VT again, right? Kyle makes a run. He gambles on Gillan winning that ball, right? Like, if Niall O'Leary catches that ball, right, and he feeds it to Robbie O'Flynn has 60 yards in front of him. That's just the way it is. There are 2 things. To go back to the point you made, right, about Hogan normally being a dead-eyed dick, as you call him yourself, right? 5 frees, 2 sidelines, and a missed penalty. That was like the dead ball situation for Cork. They got no return after 8 of them, which is a fair amount of them, right? And the last thing is, I did think tactically with Cian Lynch, right? And it was easier to see when we were there. Ger Mellerick picked up Cian Lynch every time he kind of left the centre forward position. He man-marked him, and they left Will O'Donoghue free. It was an interesting tactic, because normally, Dalo, as we old schoolers would be thinking, we wouldn't leave a midfielder free. They kept their 6 forwards in position, and they left Will O'Donoghue free and got Mark Coleman to sit in the pocket, and then Mellerick to pick up. And then when Cian went back into the centre forward position, Coleman picked him up again, and Mellerick pushed on. So I did think there was a lot to like about him. The final thing I'm going to say about Cork, Mark, is I think the under-20 final is huge. I think for the county, for hurling,
massive.
I think this team I think they need to win the All-Ireland under-20. It'll give the team a boost, a shot in the arm. I think the team is heading in the right direction. There are positives, and the next day out the Cork Senior hurlers play will be a big gauge for Kieran Kingston and them boys as to where they're going.
Yeah,
and TJ... the Dubs could do with winning that as well, I suppose, to be saying. All right, but it is. They've been knocking on the door. They've got a huge momentum boost in the last 10 days. But TJ, just back to the All-Ireland champions, 7-point winners. defensively, Dan Morrissey was the one to lose out in the shuffle or reshuffle or whatever you want to call it. Big call, I thought, very big call. The All-Star fullback. English had been superb, and obviously the intention was to play Richie English with the amount of time he saw during the league and test out that leg. But Dan Morrissey to lose out was a big one for me. I still think there's room with that Limerick with Mike Casey supposed to be coming back now in the next week or two. So here, that Hayes go back up to number 11. I think he'd give it an awful shot in the arm above as well.
Yeah, I just think the way the game has gone, I think Kyle nearly offers more from that kind of pushing on wing back position. But to go back to Dan Morrissey, I'm just not sure from a training point of view. I know he had a bit of a hamstring injury. He came off against Galway in the league as to where he was in his preparation, right? Maybe he wasn't exactly where they wanted him to be. Maybe he didn't get transitions in. But look, it's a good flexibility to have. Everybody knows now you have a starting team and a finishing team. I think Dan will be full back in time. I don't have any doubt about that. Whether Mike Casey features or not, it probably will be a little bit like Richie English last year. He might come back into the squad and he might be, if absolutely needed, might be able to play 10 minutes. Like, we know at this stage now, coming back from those cruciates takes time. You got to build it up. But look, it's good to have them there. I just think what Kyle Hayes is doing from 7 is just incredible. Burns was very good as well on the other side. Dara Donovan chipping in with the goal was huge. And the forwards, Peter Casey, 3 points from play. Shane Flanagan, 2 from play. Keane, 3 from play. Gerard Hegarty, 2 from play. Nice spread as well. So I would say, as Hoagie said there, John Kiley will be happy. It's job done. It's into a Munster final. It's the front door, effectively. And just looking for a little incremental improvement the next day. That's what he'll be looking for, I'm sure.
And coming back to the tip there, I'd say Sheedy's probably pretty happy as well.
Yeah.
Like the last thing he wanted was, obviously to go shoot the lights out against Clare and everyone be talking about Tip going in against Limerick and talking them up. They won't be talking about Tip. The two McGraths had a quiet game. Paddy kind of had to work his way into the game. There's no doubting the quality that those boys have, and come the Munster final, those lads will be ready. You'll be expecting a big kick from them. So I'd say both managers are probably pretty happy with the way things have gone. As the school report goes, there's plenty of room for improvement on both sides. So it's teed up for a nice Royal Rumble in a week or two.
Yeah, they had a few that struggled on both sides. Hadn't they, big guys? Brendan struggled as well. And you're saying, will he be getting back up? But what a weekend we have to look forward to in 2 weekends' time. And I don't think Limerick will be beaten twice. So I think whoever will beat Limerick will have to be like 19. It'll have to be the semi-final or the final. I couldn't see him being beaten twice.
Yeah.
Just before you go away from the Cork game, Anthony, I'd like to mention John Melrick, I suppose, and Jack O'Connor, 2 slight lads who I thought made their debuts over the weekend and hurled fierce well. And as TJ mentioned earlier on, I think the lads must have been listening to the pod as well, because we gave them a shout out. We thought they would be starting. Plus, Sean O'Donoghue picking up Aaron Gillan. He was the perfect man marker for him and held him scoreless for the game. Sean O'Donoghue has been a really good Tigerish cornerback, and he had a fantastic game as well. And I just want to, I'd say if we were told before the game that, Flanagan, Gillan, Hegarty and Tom Morrissey would all be taken off during the course of the second half, you'd be kind of thinking that you were after winning the game. I thought the Cork defence, and they've been much maligned over a long time, I thought they played well as a unit on Saturday, and just a bit disappointed that the momentum that was got early didn't continue. But there's a lot of fruit. There was a lot to like about what we saw on Saturday, and there might be better days ahead.
Yeah, they are obviously. I think they're very dependent on the couple of lads staying fit, Harnedy and O'Cadigan. I lied for Damien Cahalane. He's taken a good bit of old flack over the years from fans and keyboard warriors. Lighted for him. He's a real man, isn't he? He comes back for more.
He is.
He's a fella you'd love to have on your squad.
He loves the game. He made a big decision a number of years back to commit to hurling. His dad was a very successful footballer, Niall, before him, and that was a big call for him to make. But he's a great lad. He's a great attitude and a fantastic athlete. And look, the draw is so important for teams that have been beaten now. That is the critical thing. But morale and the draw.
Good
that is the last draw. But I think the point is well made about the under-20 final now, next on the 10th. That's a critical final. And I know, Dalo, you would have a graph for the dubs and stuff for that, but we need the under-20 final. We need that win, because Cork is crying out for silverware.
Yeah, probably the right way. I mean, you'd be
wins.
hot favourites, but you've been chasing a few times as hot favourites in minor 20 now,
Yeah.
so
Oh, absolutely.
shouldn't be any issue that way. Saturday was just, it was an incredible game of hurling, year one, Hoagie. It was just, you couldn't take your eyes off it. We mentioned Fergal's contribution. Would there be some people critical of the way he refed it in there saying, well, what are we supposed to do? So are we supposed to not blow for frees? Or not? Actually, in fact, I thought there wasn't a lot of fouling in it, or maybe the borderline ones, he just let him go, and we all loved it so much more because of that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for bringing me on board to represent the Leinster hurling. You know, it took Leinster hurling to light up the championship. You know, on Saturday, so hurling is back. But I've been waiting there for an hour to say that.
I know. we knew that was coming. That's what I said yesterday. I said, Hoagie's on with us tomorrow morning. I said, we're going to get it about the Leinster championship.
To go back to your question, Dalo, look. I think certainly I was wrong. You know, I thought there was a couple of instances where, you know, our lads were pulled back, or you know, there was heavy tackles or whatever. But there was equally the same on the other side from a Wexford perspective. But I think he was consistent and he allowed the play to flow. There was nothing you could remotely say was dangerous or anything. It was just very physical. And I think when you let the game flow like that, you're always going to have certain, you know, moments where you're going, oh, geez, I thought that was a free, maybe, you know, and you'll argue over that. But look, I thought in the grand scheme of the game, it flowed. It was, you know, physical, which we all want, but it was on the ball. It was exciting. It allowed the game to develop, you know, rather than this kind of stop-start, kind of almost set-piece scenario, which we've seen, you know. I mean, look, Christ, the league went by and I couldn't wait for it to be over, to be honest. It was the most depressing thing to watch, you know. It just didn't capture the excitement at all. And, you know, there was different reasons for that. But on Saturday, you know, there was 8,000 there, but you know, there could have been 80,000. It's just the way it came across. It was just, yeah, it was real championship, you know, and that kind of filtered through to the rest of the matches. It started with Galway Dublin, and it filtered through into Sunday, and it felt like proper championship, you know, and it kind of, you know, the league was forgotten. So I thought he did a fantastic job, and I think, you know, look, you can see maybe it's our age or whatever, but you know, you saw Brian Whelan, Ken McGrath, you know, all the former greats, you know, just reminiscing saying what a fantastic match, and everyone, I think everyone agreed it was a great match. There were Wexford people, Kenny people alike, you know. Just unfortunately there had to be a loser, you know, the way the spectacle the players put on.
Lads, we were probably thinking of our top threes there a couple of weeks ago. We didn't call them out for whatever reason. We didn't have the Cats. A lot of us didn't have the Cats in our top three. He keeps on doing it. He keeps on doing it, doesn't he?
I'm guilty, Brian. Brian, just a quick question for you. Is this a new Cody? Show me team conceding sharp puck outs.
Well,
is
unbelievable. Funny you say. I thought that was a mad decision in the first 15 minutes, and actually they were roaring into Adrian Mullen to get the word across to the rest of the forwards to push up after about 15-20 minutes. I couldn't understand it. If you watch the Laois match, and you were talking about it there in the last podcast, the way Cheddar allowed the Laois lads back off and let Wexford develop, it was madness, you know. And it's not Kilkenny's style either, you know, to allow to concede a puck out. It's not something we've ever done, you know. But they changed it, you know, within 15-20 minutes, just shortly after the water break. The message got into Adrian Mullen, they pushed up, and that was a significant change in terms of how the match panned out from there. And it's much more kind of what I suppose Kilkenny are comfortable with. But you know, talking to one or two of the lads after, you know, particularly in extra time, they said they could see the years falling off Brian. He looked 20 years younger by the time it was over, because he'd take more satisfaction out of that type of win than if we'd won by 12-15 points. You know, he'd almost disregard that kind of win. But that game, they're the sort of games that, you know, give him a new lease of life. And I think I mentioned the Limerick match a couple of years ago, the same kind of scenario, you know.
And intensity was incredible. Dalo, how good is TJ Reid in the tackle? Just he'd take the eye out of your head and he'd come back for the socket. Like, he's unbelievable. He just flicks the ball away. He wins so much of that ball. He's as good a player as I've ever seen to dispossess an opponent.
Yeah, I'd say he spends any hour he has free in the gym as well. I know he owns the gym, but he's so physically strong. I mean, even some of the overhead catches, lads, they're just complete strength, aren't they? Like he can hold off his opponent legitimately. He can just hold off a strong man like Matthew Hanlon, let's say, and create enough space, and then the reach he has on top of it, and then of course the hurling brain he has. That's the part, and the selflessness, because although he does rack up huge scores, it doesn't bother him if he doesn't get the scores. He's
he'll give it
time team.
Yeah.
Look, they were very good. I don't know if we've lost Brian, a couple of issues there with the phone, but. Would his thinking be a bit changed? You spoke about that thing at the start and the dummy team. I think he did a dummy team against Wexford 2 years ago, because I asked Inda McAvoy and he was able to tell me, he said, no, 19 against Wexford, he did a dummy team as well that day. But lads, is he more conscious now of holding back a couple of lads, like holding back John Donnelly, which was a shock for me, but the impact then, of course, of these guys, Walter, is he more conscious now that you have to finish with your strongest 15 in a change for Cody as well?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think the energy required, Mackie, for that 50 minutes, I think definitely. The other thing I was going to say to you before I go into that was Paddy Deegan's hit on Lee Chin. Don't forget about that. Have you ever faced something like that before, where there's a tank coming at you? Unbelievable. Well, I to go to your point, I do think so. I think he was conscious of it. I think it was probably in their head to introduce those two guys at the time that he introduced them. So it is a new Cody.
Deegan's a hardy boy, isn't he? He's tough. He's not for going back in there.
But it's the honesty of it, Anthony. It's the honesty. Like, you know, like you just expect to go out and you drop your shoulders and you get into it. And like, just the admiration that I have for Brian Cody, it just knows no bounds. Like, he has reinvented the Kilkenny style or Kilkenny hurling, and about his fifth or sixth time now reinventing a different pattern of play. I think the last 2 or 3 years there was a bit of frustration around short puckouts in particular. Would not be a Kilkenny style. It's a case of get the ball down to the forwards. We'll challenge for it in the air. It's going to either drop behind or drop in front. Have 2 men there, 1 in front, 1 behind, and scrap like hell for that ball. But to see him going short with puckouts, that was alien to Brian Cody. So that shows how much he is willing to change and adapt to it's a modern or how the game is evolving and stuff. I still don't particularly like it myself now, I will say. But then not to name 3 players on the starting 15. Plus, the Kilkenny team is nearly always out, I would say, Brian, on a Thursday or early Friday. I don't think I saw. Am I right in saying that team wasn't announced until pretty late? It wasn't around, I don't think, Friday night. Again, something that Brian Cody, I saw it involved when I was involved with Cork, like that Jimmy always insisted that we would have the team out on Wednesday night. I said, Jimmy, they're in the team, in the country, announcing the team on Wednesday night. Don't give the opposition an opportunity to look at your team and size you up, like, you know, and like the closer it gets to the match, the less time you have to think and prepare and make changes. So that was definitely something that Kilkenny have brought that wasn't there for the last number of years.
No,
Huggy, you spoke about the league. Huggy, you spoke about the league, and there's some contrast in Wexford, isn't there? Like the Wexford are back to the 19 form, and so many of their big players like Chin. I know he cramped up at the end. What a performance by Chin as well, I thought, overall.
Yeah, look, I mean, it takes 2 teams to put on a spectacle like that, you know, and Wexford played their role, you know, admirably. You know, from the first 20 minutes, Rory McCarthy was on fire. You know, he scores out on the sideline, and obviously Jack came on and he scored a worldie out on the other sideline, you know, and Chin there, just the athleticism he has, you know, and I mean, the style of game that they have, it just, you know, with the running game, it just wasn't sustainable for the extra time. And I think it caught up with them. Now, I obviously have to give.
Is that what happens? Do you think that's what happens, Huggy? People speculating about that.
I don't look. I'd have to give a lot of kudos to our S&C guy as well. He's from my own club, Michael Comfort. He was involved with us when we won our last county title. You know, he big boots to fill when he went in to take over for Mick Dempsey. You know, and obviously Mick been there for years, you know, and had it down to a T. And, you know, again, like everything, when you're new, there's questions asked, you know, and there was questions asked last year all about the condition of the players, this, that, and the other. Whereas I think the lads, you know, for him, it's a great feather in the cap. They showed, I think, only was only Owen Cody who went down with a cramp for us, you know, and they had to take him off. The rest of the lads, like you mentioned, Paddy Deegan got a ball in injury time of extra time. He went off in a run like a lunatic up the middle, full of energy, as if it was the first minute of the game, you know. So huge credit has to go to the lads. But yeah, look, Wexford. I mean, I think once Wally got that goal, once Kilkenny got their noses in front, and it was going to be whichever team got that bit of luck. Wexford had the break, and Murph pulled off an unbelievable save. You know, it went up the other end of the field. Kenny just got their nose in front, and you could just see the physical exertion that Wexford had put in, and then the mental trauma of conceding that goal. They were done. That was it. It was gone. They couldn't pull it back, and you know you couldn't really fault them really. But geez, yeah, like Liam Ryan, you know, some match. Matthew Hallen had a right battle with TJ. You were saying, look, TJ was quiet by his standards, but not quite, because he was always in the game and always, you know, putting tackles in, etc. But then in second half, in the first couple of minutes of second half, he pinged over a couple of balls, you know, and there's TJ again, you know. But Mark, you mentioned, you know, the way that Brian has evolved, and he has, in terms of the way, you know, the lads are playing the game. But the one thing that doesn't change is what he expects from the players in terms of work rate. And, you know, you were mentioning how Robbie Flynn just switched off for those couple of minutes against Limerick on Kyle Hayes. That would be unacceptable. Like, Brian Cody would not tolerate that. You know, like, you know, there's players who maybe have fallen by the wayside in Kilkenny because the penny just didn't drop with them in terms of what he wanted as a base. You know, he knows he can score points, but you need to do the dirty work. And, you know, that's something he would have honed in on if he was at the other side of the camp. But yeah, look, huge credit obviously has to go to him. But I still think there's a number of question marks on the Kilkenny side as well. They're by no means a finished article, you know.
There's a lot of class in the team now, Brian, isn't there? Like Owen Cody, Reid, Mullen. They're definitely classier, I think.
I was trying to tot it up. I didn't get a chance to. How much of the scorers came from the Ballyhale contingent? Like, you wonder why it's so hard to win a county championship with Kilkenny when you've got Owen Cody, Adrian Mullen, TJ Reid, you know, and I don't know what Richie Reid, and then Dara Corcoran starting wing back as well, you know. And some would argue that, you know, like Dara had a great game, but you've got other lads from the Ballyhale, like Darren Mullen there, who's pushing hard. But yeah, like, look, I still think there's Richie Lahey started midfield. He didn't go well. He's had a couple of opportunities. You know, James Maher came in, made a big addition. You know, he needs to push on. I still think at half back.
We lost Hoagie there.
He's gone.
But they're not the finished article, like.
But Anthony, he also, like, he mentioned the three scorers there, right? Mullen and Cody and TJ. But then you put in Massey, Keown, Walter, and John Donnelly. Like, what you're getting three beasts on your team that could just stand in under the ball, thanks very much, put up the hand, and actually secure possession. And I think that is a huge help to some of the other players around them. But like, one Cody and Mullen are not small by any manner of means, and they're physically, and I would make that point. Owen Cody in particular, I can remember him playing 3 years ago with Kearns and Ballyhale. Actually, he got the goal against Ballygunner in that match, that in the muck. He was a slight little boy then, but he's a little tank now, and that is down to the strength and conditioning and the backroom that Kilkenny have done for their players, and he is the man that will take over the mantle from TJ Reid, in my opinion, going forward. And we mentioned himself and Mullen were young hurlers of the year. We did, even though we didn't fancy him, we did reference that they have forwards that are capable of scoring and doing damage. And when you have them, you'll stay in most games.
Yeah, and TJ, is it written in the stars now that we're going to have a clear Wexford ginormous qualifier in Portlaoise or somewhere again?
That's exactly.
It looks like it'll be on the card.
I wouldn't like to be playing Lohan next to that, lads. Whatever about David Fitz, I'd say whoever comes across Lohan next. There are two other small things from the game. I'm just wondering, what will Fergal's report card read from the powers that be? Like, we all think it was a 10 out of 10. We loved it. It was in the spirit and the mood of the game, and it suited the game, right? But I'm just saying, what will his report card read, number one? And number two, I tipped Wexford. Actually, my tipping, Dale, at the moment is absolutely horrendous. I think it's 2 out of 6 or 7 or something, right? But I thought that Davey had this lined up from a long way out, and he did, right? And it looked like he got everything spot on. They could have won the game, but Cody was ready. And I suppose being championship ready, as Brian said there, that step up and that difference between the league, he was ready for it. And I'm just this vision in my head, right? We're all talking about Limerick and Galway being 1 and 2, and everyone else is in the pack, and we're talking about Waterfords and Corks. And I'm just wondering, driving out of Crow Park on Saturday evening, is Cody kind of smirking away to himself? I kind of have this vision. Yeah. I definitely got that sense, definitely after the weekend.
Oh yeah, they're bang there. There's no doubt about it. An epic. I was thinking it's the best game maybe since 18. In some ways, that we think of that brilliant weekend in 18 of the 2 semi-finals, Saturday and Sunday. I thought that was the best game since then, and I think it could be bubbling up now as the crowd starting to come back. How much that means to even yesterday in the Gaelic Grounds, like it was like being at kind of a big Munster minor match in the Gaelic Grounds. You know those ones where the Mackey stand is nicely full and a nice view at the far side, and that creates a great old atmosphere. And we can look forward now. I think even the qualifiers are going to be great games. You could imagine a Wexford Cork or a Clare Galway. Brilliant atmospheres in compact enough places as well. It could be. So I think it's unreal, lads. Massive fun, I suppose, to start off the day on Saturday. So thrilled for Matty Kenny. Sorry for Shane O'Neill. I don't particularly take any pleasure in anyone winning and losing. Gone mellow at this hour of my life. But to think before the match with the league form and the talk, and a lot of the talk about last year's semi-final and maybe how they kind of threw away last year's Leinster final, that was the narrative, that Galway would only hit 114. It is a fair achievement by Matty Kenny's men, and the tenacity which they played and the leadership they showed all around the field. It was a huge result for Dublin.
Yeah, massive. I mean, you're looking at the stats, and possession-wise, just pretty balanced. 51%, 49%. Hookouts, all pretty balanced. But I think it was the execution on the Dublin side. The efficiency in terms of, or if you wanted to look at it from the other side, the lack of efficiency from a Galway perspective. They drove some terrible wides, some really uncharacteristic wides. And I don't know, it just, to me, looking at it, I just felt Galway were coming up to play a match, whereas Dublin were coming up to play a championship match. It just, Galway were playing, someone made a reference actually, it was like Belgium and Italy in the soccer, if you watched it, where Belgium, had all the star players, if you like, but as a unit, Italy, were just a team, a proper team, and the Dublin lads just tore in the work rate, the work out of the likes of Conor Burke there in midfield and Dara Gray and all these guys in the tracking and that. They just wore Galway down. I don't think Galway, it looked like Galway just didn't have the stomach for it, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's been a bit harsh in Galway, but you have to give huge credit to Dublin in the way they approached the game, their puck-out strategy, Alan Nola there in the goal, apart from the saves he pulled off, just the way he almost, quarterback things from the back, and they were really impressive, and I suppose it's taken a bit of time to put that kind of almost that Coola stamp on things, if you like, but I could see a lot of similarities with the way Coola set up and the way Dublin have set up, under Matty Kenny, and that they defend in numbers and defend deep, and then have huge pace and really kind of attack in direct lines, and it's really impressive, and I think they're going to cause Kilkenny a lot of problems, in Leinster final. I wouldn't be up by any stretch of imagination writing Dublin off.
No, I think it'll be a fair battle again. I think one of the things for me, Mark, maybe I'm gone out of there now since the end of 14, but for me, Danny Sutcliffe, whatever way he didn't pull with Joe Cunningham, let's say, having Sutcliffe back to where he was as a 21, 22-year-old, for me, Pádraig Mannion would be Galway's best defender, I would think, in that way, as maybe other people would say Dai Burke, maybe. But Pádraig Mannion, for me, is a real driving force for Galway. And look, I've no doubt Galway are going to have a big say yet in the year. But the way Sutcliffe went about taking on that challenge, and so I'm the leader here for Dublin, I need to step up and take you on and put my stamp on this game, not allow you to put your stamp on this game. I thought that nearly was a signal from the get-go.
It was, and to be fair to Danny Sutcliffe, he's had a good league as well, Anthony, so far this year. But there's the quality, we saw him 5 or 6 years ago, he was able to go into the sky and bring a ball down independent. has the pace to take on his men. And then whether it is left or right, it didn't make any difference to him. He can shoot for scores or crossfield balls and stuff like that. So Denny Sutcliffe was excellent at the weekend. And, you know, if you're to win any game, you need your big game players playing well. And I thought Chris Crummy and Ronan Hayes, Donald Burke as well to a certain degree, all of them contributed to the Dublin success. But I suppose the placing of Liam Rush back in the pivotal number 6 position, I think, has also given them, you know, a focal point. And he's kind of a little bit like a director of the orchestra now at the moment, you know, because he's got a lot of young lads. And Owen O'Donnell, obviously, full-back, has been probably one of the most impressive full-backs in the game at the moment. It'll be a travesty if the Leinster final loses out on him, if he won't be available to Dublin. He'll be a big loss, and he'll be massive. Couldn't you just imagine the matchup with him and TJ Reid now in the, like, that's a game that you'd go to just to see the matchup of the two boys marking each other. Yeah. But I thought, Anthony, like, Dublin were brilliant now. They were brilliant and everything worked for them. But I thought, and I referenced to Stephen Bennett missed the first free against Clare and Waterford, and I thought it set the tone. I thought Joe Canning going for the goal with the first puck of the game more or less kind of epitomised Galway's attitude, I think, in the whole. Like, early in the game, okay, I know that the lads referenced in the Sunday game last night there was 3 in the post, but like the penalties are still being struck from outside the 21-yard line. I'd be shocked if a fellow would get a goal out of that, and I'd be shocked if the 3 lads were, we said, Dawson or not looking and not watching Joe Canning. So I thought from the get-go, Galway's decision-making was just so poor, and then for Joe to miss 3 65s over the course of the game and to hand over the free taking to Evan Nyland just epitomised, I thought, Galway's overall performance. But it was decision-making, Anthony. Late in the game, Pádraig Mannion came up. There was 4 minutes left. He had a handy 50-yard shot. I thought he should have knocked the ball over the bar and bring it back to a goal. And in hurling, as you know, anything can happen in 3 or 4 minutes. And that malaise that was over Galway all day long, I think, continued for most of the game.
Yeah, and that's, I think Shane O'Neill refuted afterwards that they lacked hunger, and I think you're right, Mark. I think just kind of decision making or just not being, as Hogan said, not being championship keyed up. Really coming to say, this crowd are coming to war, we better meet them head on in the war front. Tough job to pick them up, TJ, or they just have so much quality that they will pick it up?
They have a huge amount of quality. Like, we spoke about strength of their panel, and I thought at one stage, maybe at the end of the league, that their panel might be the strongest in the country. The questions that will face the boys now is, they've moved Dahybrook to 6, do they stick? They moved Joe to the middle of the field, do they stick? Their forwards, to me, are very good, but they're jumping here, there, and everywhere. And sometimes, I think Brian has said this in the past, when you jump here, there, and everywhere, you kind of exonerate a little bit of responsibility rather than kind of hold it down in a set position. They lack something, whether it is, I don't know, like, would you play Joseph Cooney at centre-back? I know you had him. I've seen him playing centre-back for his club. I thought he was awesome. I think he's better in the half-back line. I know he's a ball-winning half-forward. They just have so many decisions, like Gerard McInerney, like Pádraig Mannion has played in the middle field, half-back and centre-back. Shane Cooney has played centre-back, cornerback, midfield. An awful lot of players, and there's just a little bit of a lack. Like Brian mentioned already about the kind of stability in some of the defences in the Clare's defence that kind of just has stood up. And there's something wrong here. Like, the key stat here for me is, yes, the first half went wrong. Yeah, Joe did have an off day in the freeze. Yeah, they missed whatever 10 or 12 or 15 scored in the first half. But Conor Whelan scored a goal in 43rd minute, which made the game 2-point game, right? After 43 minutes, we've all been involved with teams where we've had a flat period or a sluggish period, and then you kind of test the mentality of your team. And the good arses or the good players on a non-going day, they find a way. I've seen Kilkenny good teams down through the years, Cork teams in the past. When it wasn't going for them, you just find a way. And the weekend leaves a question mark for me about where they're going there. There's a question there. Yeah, of course, they could still have a big say in it, and they can do it. But it's a question mark for me now.
Yeah. Momentum, of course, if they could get a win or two up, and settle the team, I think that would be huge for them.
I think they made a big decision by playing Adrian Toohey wing forward, and leaving Evan Nyland on the sideline. For me, was probably a poor decision as well, as it turns out now, because he's a scoring forward. He's also back up as a free taker. That is a big decision to make. If Joe Canning and Evan Nyland were on the field to play, who would take the frees? And it's strange to say this, like, was there a little bit of pressure on Joe Canning? The fact that he missed the 365s, did he think that maybe Evan Nyland was the right person to start? And I don't know, does that play in fellas' heads? I certainly felt that Evan Nyland should have been on the starting 15. The other thing that I thought is that Garrod McInerney, lads, seems to be after losing a bit of pace. And I think that's why Dahi Burke has gone out to centre-back and McInerney's gone in full-back. I saw it against Cork as well. He struggled on Hernady early in the game, and there was a switch there. But
you'd be better off. You'd be better off centre back, Mark, if the pace was going than full back. Because the likes of Ronan Hayes is lightning off the mark.
Yeah, maybe because Ronan Hayes is so fast, then that makes Garrod look slightly off the pace. I suppose it's a little bit like Padraig Maher playing full back at the moment. I'd have a big question mark whether that's going to suit him or not.
Sometimes, Mark, when your head is not tuned into a game, you can look sluggish, you can look slow.
Correct.
Yeah. When you're tuned in, you're just breaking for those balls. You're sharp, exactly. But like Park Mannion, he's one of these guys who's a specialist at sideline balls. And he hit 2 balls up along the line. Really poor sidelines, which you'd never see. Aside from obviously Joe missing a few frees, which can happen. But just even the balance of the team. You've mentioned Dahi and McInerney switching, but like all the forwards that we always hear about that Galway have, and yet we're playing Adrian Toohey and Cooney in the forwards. Yeah. It just didn't marry for me, whereas Dublin seemed to have a much clearer purpose. And obviously Matty Kenny has been saying in interviews about building and working towards this, and this, I suppose, developing this team, and they all seem to be very clear in terms of what their role was. And obviously Darragh Gray picked up a couple of points, but as soon as Alan Nolan got the ball, the movement, in terms of getting into position, getting the ball, and moving it through the lines, it was very clear, a clear purpose from Dublin, which I just didn't get the sense from Galway was the same.
Yeah, it's interesting. A few lads, you're here over busy few weeks here in the pub, and a few lads just saying that Galway will win it this year, that Galway are now ahead of Limerick, and how quickly the whole thing can shift. I wouldn't be ruling them out in any way. Yeah. Great. What a weekend to look forward to, lads, in 2 weeks' time. Massive game next week, obviously, with Antrim and Laois for their survival. Yeah. And you would say, not being down on Cheddar's men now, but for what all the good Antrim did in the league, to be nearly a travesty if they lost the status of the Lee McCarthy again. But the 2 provincial finals and the qualifiers then kicking in, massive stuff to look forward to. Mark, you shot into an early lead there in the fantasy hurling there last Saturday evening, but you're coming back down the pack there straight away. You're mid-table. I know the wooden spoon now is probably not concerning you. It's firmly between myself and the COVID stone from O'Loughlin.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, tis worrying, Mark, to go off from 1st to 5th. Steady.
Myself and Pam Mull have a strategy, whether you know it or not, but we did spot the anomaly that Antrim and Laois will be playing next weekend, Dalo. So I think from this star lineup that we have in front of me there, I think there's only one person has one player from Antrim maybe that will be scoring next weekend, whereas Marco and the Honda Queen have 2 players involved, Mr. McManus and Mr. Clark. So 382 versus 404. I'd be confident enough, Dalo, that we'll be back in the number 2 slot. And if McManus will have a right good day, we could be up there with the Laura Flyers. So I'd say all isn't lost, Dalo, now.
I was talking to Darren Gleeson there in Limerick yesterday, saying that Neil pulled up with a quad in a training match Saturday, so I think he could be out for that there. But
Jesus.
Yeah, no, I had a good all week, but I kind of did a bit of gambling as I put in Conor Cooney as my captain, thinking he might snipe a couple of goals. But then when I saw how far out from the goal he was, I said, I'm in trouble here. So yeah.
Hoagie, we need to make changes, but we can't make them for a while.
Patrick Horgan let me down. They were all going well. Kyle Hayes popped in with a nice goal, and TJ did his bit, and everything else.
Yeah.
Bloody Hoggy with the penalty and the couple of frees. It was like, I thought that would get me up 1 or 2 positions anyway.
Yeah, and I don't mind finishing last than this one, lads. I say I've been dominating this kind of thing, you know. So I look at that. In fairness to Larry and myself, I didn't mind. Like Larry seems to be taking a back seat. He's posted up a little message to say he has 3 next week. So we could have the tip fellas at the top too. You wouldn't know. Our listeners league. Hurler on the Ditch Boy is still going well.
By God.
209, and he will tell us about it on Twitter. I suppose he did already. Great score in 209, with massive scored in from Michael McCarthy, 224, and Davy Lahart, 236 in the 1 week. He must have had everyone. So tight at the top there. Well done to the Erognina man. He's always an interesting guy to follow on Twitter as well. Not afraid to.
John O'Connor had some score there, 288 points from Hospital.
Yeah. Unbelievable. I think he said it. I think he said it as well on Twitter. I think I spotted him saying that. John, well done. And I see Shane Hassett there as well from Drummond Inch. Good Joel man. Would be given a hand with Brian Lohan, I'd say, here and there with the Clare team. So good stuff. Good way to go. And I suppose the next round of transfers will be. Hugely important.
I said Hurler in the Ditch wouldn't be top this week, Dalo. So who goes with the name Hurler? Why do you just put his name to it? But anyway, I kind of said he wouldn't be top this week, so I did a bit of humble pie there. So I have to hope the other boys get ahead of him so that to prove me right. As I said to you, my tipping at the moment is really struggling. John O'Connor is actually a Gareth Blandman now, really. I'm surprised he's got Hospital Herberstone still down there as his club. And the other thing is, in the under 11, I see another Limerick man, Evan Carroll's flying it from the Monaleen under 11s. I think he's the top of the junior pile. So good crack. I can't believe I put in Sean Loftus ahead of Kyle Hayes. Again, like you, Dalo, I thought Loftus would pick off a couple of scores. I thought it'd be a handy win over Dublin. So yeah, it's kind of my match tipping at the moment. Like my wife said to me last night, Sean Loftus ahead of Kyle Hayes. You mad?
Yeah, I know. It seems very easy to do it on the Sunday night. But TJ, will get your act together before Ballybrit, will you?
I know. We need to get no tip, yeah, because are we going talking about the Queen?
No, I'm fed up with talking about her because we don't get the proper. Once we've got the proper information to say back her, and she delivered. The last day again, she was just out for a gallop. Up she comes. Fellas saying to me in Thurles, "Do you not back her? I backed her." You know, so. Fella Leash told him to back her. Yeah. Nice prices and everything. Yeah.
Well done, Mark.
Congrats, Mark.
Thank you very much, lad. She's some little daisy, isn't she? She's someone like to know.
How does it feel like to beat JP McManus in a photo finish?
Well, I was hoping it was going to be a little bit like the Hurling match on Saturday. We'd just get up by a nose, like, you know, a point would have done, but you know, the fact she missed out the second last, and the jockey Shane Fitzgerald said it probably cost her a length, but he balanced her again and she pinged the last, as did JP's horse, to be fair, and the two of them pulled away. There was 2.5 lengths back to the third, but to get her nose in front, and like you, TJ, at the match, I was there. I travelled on my own to support the Queen and the trainer. But it was absolutely fantastic to get the nose and head. And the plan is now what to do with her next.
She has great heart, isn't she? She has great heart.
Yeah, but she won in Tremor over 1.5 miles on the flat as well. She won by a short head from Dennis Hogan's horse, and another stride she was beaten. Like, so she can find the she knows what the winning line is there. But
we'll be going to Ballybrit shortly, will you?
The plan is he texted me there this morning now that she's bucking and lepping, and he wants to go to Sligo next weekend. There's a mayor's race there now, and I'm hoping for Galway myself personally. There's a mayor's race there for 30 grand. If she was only second or third, she'd pick up a good few quid and stuff for that. But I'm going to Galway with a long time. There's a group of us there from there's a lad from Donegal, and McCormick, and there's a couple of lads from Kildare, Glen Ryan and Eddie Rocket, Eddie McCormick, and a couple of lads from down here in Killa or in Carrigtwohill, down to Tom O'Brien. 18 years we're going to Ballybrit. So I had 1 year off there. My son Matthew was born on the 30th of July, 5 years back. So that was the only I won't say unbroken service, but I have a lot of service there. So I'd love to have a runner in in Galway. But this week now is all about the Queen's half-brother, the toothpicker, who makes his debut next Friday night in Mallow. So he should be entered up today, and will be, Jamie Codd, if he's available, is intended to ride it. So fingers crossed he can do the business. But it will be a big ask for a horse to come out and win the first time out in a bumper. But the Queen, I wouldn't have expected 3 years ago. Absolutely. He has the work done, and the question is now whether he'll be able to produce it on the field of play.
Okay, guys, you got it all there. The two-picker, did you?
Two-picker, yeah. Dylan, before we go, I just need to give a shout-out to my old buddy in Galway, Kevin Lally. They had a great win on Friday night. The Galway last year's under-17 team, they looked incredibly strong. They kind of ran amok against Limerick in the last quarter, but look, a fine team again, that Galway team, like really, really strong. I think they're playing Kilkenny, Brian, in the final next Saturday. So next Saturday. So a good win for Kevin. The only thing I want to say, Dalo, is any bit of fertilizer or water down there? They all pitched up fairly hungry or something there on Friday night. Did you see it in telly?
Where, the park?
Yeah.
I didn't see that match. No, I didn't see the match. I was caught up. No, I didn't see. But I'd be surprised to hear that, to be honest with you. There was a few given out about Crow Park as well, though. They were giving out about, you mentioned the sidelines, Brian. There was a few given out that it was kind of bare along the sidelines. I don't know. This was unreal, anyway, I'd have to say.
Yeah. Okay, the grounds up well, too.
Sorry.
Just saying.
Yeah, I met Mike Reardon beforehand. He was very happy with his surface. So, yeah, all was good.
Will the Munster final go to Cork, lads?
Sure, it has to be. No, it is. It's fixed. It's 4:15 on Sunday week in Cork. Yeah, it's fixed.
So the Leinster final is the curtain rails. Is that what you're saying?
I forgot to say.
Saturday evening, yeah.
We'll set
Saturday evening, is it?
Saturday evening, yeah.
All right, okay.
But that's good, though, and that'd be good, I think, and alternate who has the Sunday every second year, like.
Yeah,
so it should be
will there be an increase in the numbers? Will there be an increase in the number to be allowed to attend?
Hopefully.
I'd say so, yeah.
Hopefully.
That'd be a big thing, wouldn't it?
Good. Okay, lads.
Before we go, let's go.
Customers want to come in the door in a minute.
Good. Let's go back to the this rule. What's the way forward?
I don't think there's too much wrong with the rule. I agree with Brian Lohan on that. I just think the interpretation got to be sure. And my final thing on that, I'm going to mention it again. Like it's just a call by James that he just decided, you know what, I'll give a penalty here and I put off your man. For me, the other ones you could debate them. You could debate the Shane Fives one. You can debate the Peter Casey ones. Could there be like Aaron Shannon Bisdee shot past the post? Was Callahan about to use a drop puck and put it in the roof of the net? But from where Luke Morris was, or Jake Morris was, he wasn't going to be a goal unless there was a freakish series of events, as Hoagie said. So I don't think there's too much wrong with the rule. I think we go back to Adrian Toohey's rugby tackle on Shamie Callanan last year for the tip people, in case they think it's nothing to do with tip, the whole thing actually. But Shamie's bearing down on goal to put tip into the lead, and Adrian Toohey you wouldn't see it in Thomond Park, the tackle. And that's what we brought it in for. And you mentioned the Danny Sutcliffe one. That was a good bit further out, I suppose. Yeah. That's the kind of thing. But the Adrian Toohey one was the perfect example of why we needed something. On Murphy's one, as we said, the perfect example. He took the chance that, okay, I'll be gone for 10 minutes. I'll be back. And he was back. And what an impact he made. But that Darren Brennan would go in and save the penalty and it wouldn't be too much damage done. So I think we need the rule. I don't think there's too much wrong with it. I just think a bit more common sense to be applied, Tej.
Yeah, there's a bit of a correlation between NEFIT and that Referees Association or something at the moment, isn't there? They're just kind of using the power and they kind of just controlling the situation, and they need to listen to the people a bit more, I think.
Well, you have the right. Send us up and we'll sort out that.
We're available.
All right, thanks to Renault. Hoagie, thanks a million for joining us. The cats are back.
No pleasure. A pleasure, lads. Thanks as always.
Great stuff,
keep TJ in the straight and narrow.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
With Renault, passion for what drives you. Official car partner of the GAA.
A grain of rice. A grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lad.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo. You've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.